Hello my fibbly fobblers, I'm Spruce, and in this video, I'm gonna draw in 7 different manga styles, and try my best not to go insane while doing so. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I had to do when doing this challenge was of course pick who I was going to draw. So I decided to choose the main character of my little imaginary story. Her name is Aiko, and I guess before getting started I should probably explain a bit about the world she's from. I'll try to make this quick. Aiko lives in a world where a small percentage of people have the ability to manipulate their blood. Your manipulation type is determined by your dominant love language, and the natural shape of your blood is somewhat determined by what you love/appreciate the most. Aiko, our main character, lives in a world seemingly built upon love, but she herself has never felt any attraction towards anyone. She usually isn't bothered by this, but as the years go on and her world seems to be more and more surrounded by love, she starts to wonder why she can't relate to those types of feelings. And that's all I'll say for now. That's the main premise of the story. If there's enough interest in this, I might make a whole video about it, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's move on from that. First thing I did before even getting into the 7 manga styles was just draw her as basic as I could. I just wanted to get down the values and the components of her design. Was this really necessary? I mean, not really. I already have reference pictures of her, but I just wanted a quick warm up before getting into the actual styles. And it was fun, so I don't mind. Well, whatever. Okay, so Aiko's design. She has long black ponytails with orange undersides. She has orange eyes, a long oval face, and a curved nose. Her outfit, aka her school outfit, consists of a white shirt with a black jacket thing over it, a black tie, and black long pants. The labels of her jacket are made of a red puffy material, and she has 2 fabric strips on the sides of her pants just hanging down. Her shoes are black chunky shoes with white spats over them. And of course,
belt.
Okay, well, on to style 1. This style is actually the whole reason I had the idea of doing this video, and it's Hat Atelier. God, I love this manga so much. But yes, let's get to analyzing. Kamame Shirahama is a very good artist. She's incredibly skilled and her fundamentals are very strong. Her lines are very fluid and full of motion. The line art has a lot of details and she uses a lot of little small lines in the hair and fabric especially. Her backgrounds and panels are also very well made. I'm a big fan of the paneling especially. But today I would just be focusing on the character drawings. So in my piece, I tried to make sure to go for a fluid pose. I mean, Aiko is just kind of floating there, but it still works. And a problem, or well, more like a struggle, I stumbled upon during the whole challenge was Aiko's hairstyle. It's not very conventional, so it was hard to get a feel for how it would look and be depicted in each style. But for Hat Atelier, I decided to tame it down a bit and make it more flowy, still keeping the lighter undersides of the hair and her little beautiful emo bangs. I think the clothes are where I did the worst on this one. I mean, it's not bad, just not as good as it could have been. I feel like I didn't really know what I was doing during the first few pieces, since, well, I'm not really good at drawing black and white pieces just yet, since I haven't really done it all that much. I usually rely on color and rendering a lot in my pieces. I have been trying to focus more on line art instead of relying on colors and rendering for my pieces. If I were to redo this and make sure to have a purpose for all the lines in my drawing, as I felt in this piece, I just kinda added them just cuz. But in Kamame's art, you can clearly tell the lines follow the direction of the hair and fabric very deliberately and add motion into the piece, while I feel like mine were just there and kinda cluttered up the piece honestly. Also, I decided to add halftones onto all my pieces. Maybe a bad decision since I have legit never used it before, but there has to be a first time for everything, am I right? So I tried to keep them very simple and just used 1 shade of medium gray and added it to a few places that were supposed to have darker values. Overall, I think this piece turned out pretty well. I don't think I totally captured the Hat Atelier style, but I do like the way it looks nonetheless. On to the next one, style 2. Okay, kind of a weird choice for the second style. I decided to go for the Land of the Lustrous style. I really like the anime, but I have actually only read a few chapters of the manga, since I haven't really had the time to read it just yet. I really admire how simple and elegant the style is. It doesn't do more than it needs to, and that really appeals to me. Now, I know it does get more complex and detailed as the story goes on, but I wanted to keep mine pretty simple. The clothes of the gems are already pretty similar to Aiko's uniform, so that wasn't too hard to translate, and I actually had a pretty easy time with the hair too, even with the whole it being a gem thing. By the way, side note, I think the gem Aiko would be a orange orphalclase with black tourmaline, and that gem has a hardness of around 2.5, so she would be very fragile, like almost cinnabar levels, which fits her very well, I'd say. And also, it's orange and black, just like her. For the face, I tried to keep it very simple. Aiko doesn't really have thick lashes, so I just went with one line for the top lash and one for the bottom one. Her nose is just a simple dot, and her mouth is an oval. The face shapes in the manga are very simple as well, and don't have a lot of variety, so I just kinda copied that. My main inspiration for Aiko's hair was Board's hair, since they were the only gem with long black hair. And of course I kept the lighter on the sides of her hair as well. I tried copying the shading that's in the manga, but I kinda gave up on the clothes, so I just didn't do anything. The shading in the hair is a mix of H and teardrop shapes that I saw a lot in the manga, and I think fit the shape of Aiko's hair, since it's more round than Board's. The shading is usually more concentrated where the hair overlaps due to the light not coming through as much. So I tried doing a bit of that too. And of course I had to add a bunch of shines to make the hair extra sparkly and beautiful. And okay, all done now. Overall, I do like this one. I think I could have done more for the shading, but overall, the gem hair makes up for it. On to the next one. Style free. Okay, actually, another one I haven't really read. Gachiakuta. I've only read a singular chapter of this manga so far, but damn, I really like the art style. It's so grungy and messy, and I love it. I love the way the hair looks. It's so bulky and very well defined. All the characters have very unique hairstyles, so I tried to emulate that as closely as I could in my drawing. I made sure to clump up the hair extra and actually exaggerated the shapes of Aiko's ponytail more than I usually do. The characters I took the most inspiration from were Ryo and Amo. Now, I know nothing at all about these characters, but I do know one thing. They look hella cool. Amo already has black and orange long hair, so that was actually a really good reference for Aiko's hair, even though the hairstyle is kind of different. Oh, and the eyes. Those big, beautiful eyes. In Gachiakuta, the eyes are really detailed, and unlike a lot of mangaka, the artist chooses to include both the waterline and tear ducts, as well as giving the eye a lot of depth and perspective when drawn at different angles. Now, I didn't get to do all that much for the eyes actually, since I drew a full body pose and the attention wasn't really meant to be purely on the eyes, but oh well. As for the rest of the face, I just gave Aiko a slightly worried expression and kept it pretty simple from there. The clothes, oh boy, I do not like how these turned out at all. I feel like I didn't understand how they were drawn and shaded enough before I started going at it. It feels too clean while also being kinda poorly drawn. Meanwhile, with Gachiakuta, it looks very much not like that, and the same applies for the shading. Gachiakuta uses a lot of small and messy yet very deliberate lines in the shading, and I don't think I captured that all too well, so could have definitely worked on that more. Overall, I like how the face and hair looks a lot, but I'm not a big fan of how the body or clothes turned out. The pose is okay, but pretty simple and undynamic for Gachiakuta. Style 4!
Dungeon food. Delicious in dungeon.
So yes, the fourth style I chose was Dungeon Meshi. I love the anime and I love the manga art style as well, so it was an obvious choice. The characters feel very human, even with most of them not actually being human, and the style fits that very well. The style uses a lot of very thin and delicate lines. The face tends to be more on the simpler side, only using a few lines for the facial details. One iconic thing about the style, I'd say, is the blush. It's often just on the nose, but I really like the way the artist draws blush on the cheeks too. I think Fallen is a good example of this. Like, look, that's adorable. So yes, I did that with Aiko too. The way the hair is drawn is very fine and delicate. It looks very silky and smooth. I think I could have done better for the clothes. In the manga, manga, the clothes and the shading on them use more thin and silky lines, but in my drawing I used too many thick lines. They actually look more akin to the Hat Atelier style rather than Dungeon Meshi. Oh, also some more notes about the style. The lines themselves vary quite a lot. In the smaller close-up drawings, the lines seem to be thicker and chunkier, but in more serious and detailed shots, the style and lines are more detailed. And yes, that's all I have for this style. I think I did do well on the face and the design itself, but I could have done better on the clothes. Okay, on to the fifth style. Style 5, My Hero Academia. This is probably the one I cared the least about, honestly. I mean, I like the anime and the power system is very good, but I use this style more as a break and something I could just have more fun with, rather than taking it too seriously. Let's get to analyzing. The character designs in the manga are amazing. The variation in the characters is also very nice. The clothes and props are very well drawn and designed. Like a lot of mangaka, when drawing black clothes, Hirokoshi makes the majority of the clothing black, with the highlights being some shade of grey, with the transition between the two being a mix of straight lines and zigzaggy lines. So I tried to replicate that as closely as I could in my version. For the hair, I reference Momo, since her hair texture is pretty similar to Aiko's. The way black hair is drawn in My Hero Academia is mostly black with zigzaggy lines as highlights. And finally, the face. I think that's the most recognizable thing about the My Hero Academia style. The eyes are usually pretty big with small irises. The pupils are often, but not always, drawn as white instead of black. But I didn't think white pupils would suit Aiko all that well, so I just went with black instead. The nose is usually drawn as either a triangle, a few lines, or just a dot, depending on the perspective and such. But since Aiko's nose is pretty pronounced, I tried to still keep that while still drawing it as a triangle with some lines on top. The mouth is just a rounded triangle shape, so not much to that. But that was all I had to say for this one, and overall I did like this drawing. Everything did turn out pretty well. I don't really have anything to complain about. Next one. Style 6.
A sound soul dwells within a sound mind and a sound body.
As you might have guessed, the sixth style I chose was Soul Eater style. Now, for this one, I did more of a mix between the manga and anime, both since I really like the anime style and since the manga has gone through a lot of changes during the whole story, so it was pretty hard just picking one style through all of the chapters and volumes. But I think some key details that are very recognizable from the style is the way the nose looks, more so in the anime, and the way the clothes are drawn and shaded. The nose is basically just a round shadow where the bottom of the nose would be, and for the clothes, well, they use a lot of geometric shapes that don't always make sense, and I really love that, so I had to add that in my drawing as well. I added it especially on those fabric flaps that Aiko has, and the transition between black and highlighted parts is either just a solid line or a bunch of thin lines to make the gradient smoother. The anatomy and eyes are pretty standard, not much to point out except that they're pretty simple. Also, to match the Soul Eater style more closely, I made the Aiko's shoes more chunky and made her hair shorter but still sharp and pointy. But I don't really have much more to say than that, so let's move on to the last style. Style 7. I'm honestly sorry for this one, I was forced to do it. The last and final style is Jojo's Bizarre Adventures. Now, I do really like the style, but I don't think Aiko might not be the best fit for this style, but I guess we'll do it anyway. Araki, the artist of Jojo's, uses a lot of bold lines and details, especially in the face, muscles, and hands. Also, the poses. You've seen them, you know about them, so I had to do something more extreme than just the standing poses I've been doing for the last few styles. So, I made Aiko do this beautiful pose. Ain't she just the cutest? The faces in Jojo are pretty realistic for anime standards, especially the lips and nose. So I kept that, and the hair in Jojo is pretty varied, so I didn't really feel like I had to change that much with Aiko's hair, just added more detail and made it a bit fluffier. I also made sure to add those lines on the face and nose that make the style so recognizable. But honestly, I think I could have added more. Not just on the face, but the hair and clothes too. The shading on the clothes looks a bit too clean and flat, so I think adding more details and textures to it would have definitely helped. But other than that, the last thing I did was to add a white outline around the arms and hands of Aiko's pose to add more contrast and make the pose clearer. And that was all. That's the last style I had for this video. Overall, I think this was very fun. Even though I didn't make the drawings all that accurate, I think that actually was for the better. If I would have tried to make it perfect and a one-to-one copy of the actual style, I would have just gotten burnt out super fast, which obviously isn't the goal when I'm drawing. So just having a bit of fun and making sure I kept the details I wanted in the styles and not worrying too much about the other stuff was a very good choice. I think my favorite drawing I did was the Hat Atelier one. Even though I think I could have done it better, I still very much like how I did it. I also really like the way the hair looks in the Dungeon Meshi drawing. Overall, I rate this challenge 2 McChickens out of 6 nuggets. That was all I had to say for now. I hope you liked the video and see you next time. Also, happy Halloween!